Well, I hope you had a great weekend, and I hope that weekend did not include a whole lot of time spent at our area malls. My goodness. Over the span of 3 days, you had shooting incidents take place at Independence, of course, at the Independence Mall over there. So that was a bad deal that took place at Independence Center. And then Oak Park Mall, you had a shooting take place yesterday on Sunday. Now, want to be clear here. Let's start with Independence, where you had 4 people shot, 1 person in critical condition, 3 others ranging from serious to non-life-threatening. And we'll get to the details on this. And then, of course, Oak Park yesterday, you had 2 men in custody after a shooting. And this involved undercover police who apparently were watching these individuals try to steal from a store in Oak Park Mall. They called them out. And what apparently happened is one of the guys who they were accusing of shoplifting took the gun from the undercover cop. So it's 2 bad stories over the span of 3 days, right? I'm not a big mall guy to begin with. Malls are never really my thing. But I know for many of you and many of us, going to malls, especially this time of year around the holidays, get your shopping done, is something that a lot of us like to do. That being said, sad to say, we have seen shooting incidents take place at malls across the country. Now, this was neither of these situations are what you would call mass shootings from the standpoint of somebody going in with a motive to cause harm against innocent people. You had 2 groups at the Independence Center Mall that apparently got into some kind of a scuffle or whatever it might be. There was some disagreement, and that led to shots being fired. And then Oak Park Mall, you had the 2 alleged shoplifters, undercover cops, and that incident unfolds the way it did. But already out of the gates, what are you seeing on both sides of our state line? You're seeing people scream about guns because that's what people do when something bad happens with a gun. They scream about the guns. They don't scream about the criminals. They don't scream about, who these individuals might be, what their backgrounds might be, what their history might include. They just scream about guns. And that's what you're seeing over the last 3-4 days around this town. And, of course, it's, ridiculous to immediately want to go there, but that's what people want to do, sad to say. So take a listen. Here's part of what the law enforcement folks out in Independence, this is Jack Taylor. He was addressing the media over the weekend on the Independence Center shooting. Here's what he said.
That there were 2 individual groups of people who had met up here at the mall at some point and had some sort of interaction. We're still trying to determine what that interaction was and what the relationship was between these 2 people, or these 2 groups of people. But at some point, shots were fired between those 2 groups, resulting in the injuries. So right now, status-wise, with our victims, we have 1 in critical condition. We have 3 that vary from what I would call serious condition to non-life-threatening.
All right, Jack Taylor, Independence Police Department. That was over the weekend here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. So it brings up this question, too, and I know it's early on a Monday morning, but it brings up this question on a Monday morning. Does this change the way you look at going to malls around the holidays? This is a time of year when malls are bumping. It's going to be tough to find a parking spot in some of our area malls. And while more and more people are moving towards online shopping for their holiday needs and just their needs in general, it's tough goings right now for most malls, I would say. They probably have vacancies. They're probably looking for tenants. So I would say, generally speaking, it's not like it was 25 years ago. Everyone goes to the mall, during the holidays. You go get your shopping done and, away you go. It's not how it is anymore. But if malls needed more bad news, especially here locally, this is it. Not that, it's likely that this is going to happen to you or you're going to be finding yourself caught between a shoplifter and a undercover cop and something bad's going to go sideways on you. That's not what this is about. It's more about just the idea that, hey, you have these 2 headline stories over the weekend on the news, and now you might think twice. You might say, I got a lot of options in this town. I don't have to go to the mall anymore, John. I don't have to do it.
It's tough, the retail angle of it, right? If you're a mall and you can manage to keep your doors open and anchored tenants and that kind of stuff, then you have to deal with this later.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's very true. You're just trying to keep the doors open at this point. You're trying to, just move forward as a business, maybe a small business if you're not one of the big tenants. And now you got to worry about this nonsense. On the text line, Pete, Overland Park crime is bad. The news doesn't report it. Also, most stores don't even bother calling the police. It's hopeless. The thief gets away as they're allowed to walk out. Well, that, of course, became a thing over the last 3 years or so, right? Since 2020, riots around the country, George Floyd, all that nonsense, we developed a culture where, hey, if someone's stealing something, you just let them go. What have we talked about? The viral Lululemon stories, I think that was in California, where this Lululemon store was getting hit with thieves, like day after day after day. And finally, one of the employees chased the guys out, and she got fired, but I think they brought her back or something like that because they got so much blowback for firing a lady who just ran after thieves who were walking in multiple times a week and just stealing clothing from Lululemon. But Lululemon's approach was, hey, don't do anything. We don't want to put you at risk. Maybe just call law enforcement. But if not, just, let them walk out. There's no doubt that there is a culture and a victim mentality of basically, I'll take what I want, I'm entitled to it, and maybe somebody will call the cops, but most people won't. And this is probably a conversation to have later in the 9 o'clock hour or at some point later on in the show. But I do wonder, for those people that own retail operations, who work in retail operations, if you are seeing more theft because of cultural reasons that we allowed to, unfold over the last 3 years, but then also people just not being able to, afford things that they used to be able to afford just a few years ago. John, I wonder about that.
I'll link that to the story on the plaza last week, right?
Yeah.
The woman sees somebody coming out with arms full of stuff, tries to I don't know what, intervene, or at least take a picture.
She wanted to take a picture.
She was doing, right?
Yeah. That's right. That's right. What was the store again? I'm blanking on the store.
Well, we had, I think, 2 suspects fleeing, what was the name of this store?
Moose Jaw, right?
Moose Jaw. There you go.
With, a whole bunch of stuff over their shoulder on hangers.
Yep.
Right. And so a woman's,
took the photo.
Said she was kind of fed up with seeing that kind of stuff, so she started recording it or something.
Yeah, some Moose Jaw.
Got the gun pulled on her.
Yep, that's right. That was right down on the plaza. So you are seeing more stories like this. That's 3 stories. I mean, the shooting story at Independence Center is different, but you got certainly yesterday, alleged theft at Oak Park Mall leads to a shooting of some kind. And then, of course, you also have the story on the plaza from last week. Now, nobody died in either of these shootings. Let's make that very clear. Yet, there is one person in critical condition. We're monitoring that from the Independence Center shooting. But still, you got 2 bad situations taking place here right in our backyard at 2 area malls. On the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, I've been going to the Independence Center since I was 10 years old. Actually stopped going about 10 years ago. Crime there is not new. As a matter of fact, it's kind of the norm. I'll go do my shopping more locally or online or on Amazon. Sad news for the Independence Center. Yep, absolutely right. 913-408-7957 as we roll through and kick off a Monday morning here on KCMO Talk Radio. So you might have had a good weekend. Hopefully you did. But you probably didn't have as good of a weekend as Travis Kelce. Meantime, on the other side, the big guy, the Trumpster, had himself a questionable weekend. We'll compare those two coming up next on KCMO. Well, I hope you had a good weekend, and we appreciate you coming to us on a Monday morning on KCMO. Of course, no Chiefs game this weekend. They're on the bye following their trip to Germany last week. They're next playing a week from tonight, Monday night, in a Super Bowl rematch with the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go! Woo! Oh, my goodness.
It was a good weekend for the Chiefs, even though they were on a bye.
I did see that. Bengals lost, right? Ravens lost.
Yep. Chargers lost.
Chargers lost. I mean, sheesh. So the Chiefs keep getting gifts around the NFL. It was a good weekend for them on that front. But it was a great weekend If you are King Travis Kelce, oh my goodness, did you see this guy? He goes down to Argentina because Taylor Swift is kicking off her South American leg of her tour. So she's down there in Argentina, and Travis just hop, skip, and a jump, went on down there. I saw that he left like late on Thursday night because Patrick Mahomes had his foundation event last week. So he stays in town for that, and then he ends up going down to see Taylor Swift open up the South American leg of her tour. And this is a moment I'm sure many of you saw on social media over the weekend, but Taylor Swift changing the lyrics of one of her songs, Karma, and making it about Travis and the Chiefs. Here's what it sounded like. Mark's fist pumping on a Monday morning. He loves it.
My girls love that song, so when I told them about this, they went crazy over it.
So what are the real lyrics? That's what I don't know. I got to look that part up. But she changed lyrics in her song Karma, since some of you may not be up to speed with the Taylor Swift songs. She changed the lyrics in her song Karma to Karma is the guy on the Chiefs. I don't know what the regular lyrics are, but clearly that was a nod to Travis Kelce, obviously.
Yeah, the lyrics in that song are kind of weird to me.
Okay.
I'm not a big lyrics fan of that song, so
You're
I'm kind
not.
of glad she changed them.
She changed it. All right, good deal. Well, she clearly, and then there's this video of somebody in the audience who happened to have her phone or his phone on Travis Kelce, and he's in this VIP tent with Taylor Swift's dad, which is just hilarious. Like, he's kind of standing there, he's bopping along, Taylor Swift's dad standing next to him. It's like, this is just so bizarre to watch this. And then when she says that lyric line, you know, the dad tries to give Travis a high five, but Travis is too busy kind of soaking in the moment, and he puts his hands over his face, and he doesn't see that the dad's standing next to him trying to give him a high five. But credit to Taylor Swift's dad, because he kind of backs out of it pretty smoothly. Sometimes when you go for the high five and it doesn't get reciprocated, you look like an idiot. But Taylor Swift's dad does not look like an idiot in this video, which I guess now I'm talking about the video. I got to put it up on my Twitter page at Pete Mundo. You can see it there.
I think an underrated story is Travis getting the approval from Taylor's dad in this. He's wearing a Chiefs lanyard in the video.
And he's a big Eagles fan, as I understand it. He's from Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia.
Yep.
Okay, that's a good point. So, well, hey, Donna Kelce apparently has signed off on Taylor, and now Scott Swift has signed off on Travis. Well, we don't know if he's signed off, but he's got a Chiefs lanyard on. He's trying to high-five him during the concert. It seems like they got a little something going on there. So, hey, this thing's happening, man. I don't know what else to say, but it's real. It's happening. And I'll tell you what, I didn't like it at first, and now I absolutely love it. And call me whatever you want. Say I'm a sucker. Say I'm a loser. I don't care. I didn't like it at first, and now I'm all in. And I want them to make it. I want them to go all the way. I want them to raise those kids right here in Leawood. That's what I want. I'm all about it.
I was in on this thing from day one. I thought it was true love, and people told me it was a PR stunt, and here we are.
I was in on the PR stunt side, by the way. I was. But now I think it's legitimate. And I'm fired up about it, baby. So let's go on a Monday morning. Welcome in.
Guys are going to be heartbroken. I'm just here to pick up the pieces.
Oh, it's like you've seen this once or twice between celebrities there, John. You've been around the block. There he is.
Mark could put a parlay on this thing, I think.
The wise man, the wise senior telling the kids to just pump the brakes a little bit. Okay. All right. There's John to ruin the fun on a Monday morning on KCMO.
No. I'm just letting you know I'm here for support when the time comes.
Oh, gosh. So, Travis, I guess he's got to be heading home today or tomorrow. I got to imagine they got to get back to work tomorrow, right, with the Monday night game?
I think they have a practice this afternoon, maybe.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I hope there's no flight issues coming back to the old KCI. So, meantime, Travis Kelce had a great weekend. And It was Veterans Day on Saturday. Of course, Friday we did our Veterans Day show from the National World War I Museum and Memorial. Great show. Had a lot of fun with our friends over at the Battle Within. But I missed this. The Trumpster put this up on Truth Social Saturday afternoon. So on Veterans Day, Trump puts this up on Truth Social. In honor of our great veterans on Veterans Day, we pledge that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and radical left thugs that live that live like vermin within the confines of our country, lie, steal, and cheat on elections, and will do anything possible, whether legally or illegally, to destroy America and the American dream. The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threats from within. Despite the hatred and anger of the radical left lunatics who want to destroy our country, we will make America great again.
Such a cute soundbite.
That was Trump on Truth Social on Saturday. So what does the media do with that? Every Republican that goes on any Sunday cable news show, they get asked about, what do you think about Donald Trump's Veterans Day post? And this is going to be my message, and it's been my message for a long time, but this will be my message to Donald Trump. You are well on your way to the nomination. You are going up against a man who does not know which side of the stage to walk off of, who has approval ratings under 40, who most Americans believe has made the economy worse. All you need to do is stand there, smile, and say nothing, and you will win. That's all you have to do. The only way Trump can lose a rematch with Biden is if he becomes his own worst enemy, which is entirely possible, but I'm hoping that's not going to happen. Meantime, somebody did drop out of the race last night. We'll tell you who next. Well, you heard it there. Fox News stealing my thunder, giving you the announcement that Tim Scott has dropped out of the presidential race. This came down last night. Fox News, the South Carolina senator, going on Trey Gowdy's show to say that he is suspending his campaign, also known as dropping out.
When I go back to Iowa, it will not be as a presidential candidate. I am suspending my campaign. I think the voters who are the most remarkable people on the planet have been really clear that they're telling me, not now, Tim. I don't think they're saying, Trey, no, but I do think they're saying not now. And so I'm going to respect the voters, and I'm going to hold on and keep working really hard and look forward to another opportunity.
Well, I respect Tim Scott. Tim Scott is a good man with a great American story. The left hates him because he is a black man who is a Republican who does not sit there and cry about being a victim. He loves America. And while he admits that America has bad people in it, America has bigots and racists, and yes, that we know that exists, America is not inherently a racist country. Tim Scott says that all the time. And he's been on the show before. He's talked about that. He's just a good guy. He's an easy guy to like. And I say all that to then point out Tim Scott was never going to be the Republican nominee. And some people think it's because Tim Scott had a Republican message that resonated more so, let's say, in the 80s, 90s, or maybe early 2000s. And that's not where the party is right now. Tim Scott was going for the happy warrior approach, and that's not where the party is right now. I don't think that's it. I think it could have worked. Tim Scott just wasn't the right messenger. Tim Scott was bad in these debates. Like 3 debates, Tim Scott always, when you look back on each of those debates, was near the bottom of the pecking order. He never had a big moment. He wasn't, frankly, all that well-spoken on that debate stage. I don't know if it was nerves. I don't know what it was. But you hear him in a radio interview. You hear him on TV. You hear him at a rally. He's much better than he is in a debate. And listen, those debates, they're different, right? I mean, I can tell you firsthand, when I go on Nick Haynes' show on Week in Review doing TV, which I did this past weekend, it's different. You've got to think to yourself ahead of a question, how do I answer this in 15 to 30 seconds? I don't have 7 minutes like a radio show to build on some idea. You got to think about what you want to say. You got to spit it out, and then you got to move on. That's how it works. It's different, John.
Yeah, it would be like being a musician. You can come out and do your concert where you know the set you want to play, your first album or whatever, and another thing to walk out open mic night and start taking requests out of the crowd going, hey, do the national anthem.
Yes,
right?
Yes, that's a good analogy as well. It's one thing you go out there, your set list versus just kind of having, like you said, open mic night. It's a completely different beast. And it's not for everybody. It's very hard. I mean, what Trump did in debates, especially back in 2016, being quick, being funny, thinking on your toes, having succinct answers, whether it's the Rosie O'Donnell line to Megyn Kelly, whether it's the, I'll put you in jail line to Hillary Clinton. I mean, those are things that you cannot plan for. You just either have that or you don't. Now, it helps that Trump spent 40 years of his life in media, in the limelight, right? Getting interviewed and things like that. That helps you become better at that skill set. But Tim Scott didn't have it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not Tim Scott's time. He's a young man, by the way. I mean, Tim Scott could easily do this again. He's 58 years old. Hell, the two front runners right now are 20 years older than him. He's got another 5 shots if he wants.
Yeah, at this rate.
Exactly. So I don't begrudge Tim Scott for getting into the race. He thought he might have had a moment, but more importantly, Tim Scott got out at the right time. Now, what's hilarious is I saw this on social media last night, and I'm just laughing my butt off. Asa Hutchinson, the former governor of Arkansas, the guy's still in the race. Did you know Asa Hutchinson's still in the race? He's not on the debate stage.
Not.
Yeah,
No.
He's still running for president, this guy. I think he's polling at like 0.2%. He might be below the North Dakota governor, Doug Burgum. At least Doug's got a few cousins and family members up in North Dakota who are going to vote for him. I don't know anybody who's going to vote for Asa Hutchinson. So listen to what Asa puts up on his social media yesterday. He writes here, I've always been a fan of Tim Scott. His departure from the race is a surprise, and America will miss his hopeful message on our future. Despite our challenges, I share his optimistic view of our country. It would have been fine right there, but he wrapped it up with this. And I will work hard to earn the support of his voters. Bro, you got to get like your own family to vote for you first before you start worrying about Tim Scott's voters. Unbelievable lack of self-awareness from Asa Hutchinson. Somebody in Asa Hutchinson's campaign asked to come on the show, and you guys tell me on the text line if you'd want that. But I don't know if I could do it with a straight face. I don't know if I could poll a guy polling at 0.2% and have a serious conversation about why he should be president without me coming off like, I don't know, a bit of a jerk, which I don't want to do. But I don't know how to have a conversation with somebody like that, as if there's somehow any way they're ever going to be the nominee. So I politely turned it down because I don't trust myself to not come off like a jerk in that situation. And I don't want to look like that to you. I don't want to do a show like that. But here we are, 913-408-7957 as we roll through a Monday morning on KCMO. Steve is in Lenexa. You crying some tears over your boy Tim Scott there, Steve?
Oh, man, Mundo, let me tell you, the luckiest girl in the world is Tim Scott's girlfriend, man. He's going to get all of that attention.
Well, that's very nice of you, Steve. Very, very nice of you. I know.
She's smoking hot, man. I tell you, Tim's not going to know what to be able to do with that.
All right. That's enough. Do you have anything serious to say, or you just want to comment on what you think of Tim Scott's girlfriend?
No. What?
All right. The answer's no. The answer's no.
No, I heard part of what you said about the Veterans Day message. What was bad about what Trump said on Truth Social on Veterans Day? I think Mayorkas needs to go. There's a lot of people that need to go. Did you just think it wasn't tactful enough for the campaign? Or
of course not. Of course not. I mean, there's always ways to frame it. You know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I was just. I mean, I think that listen, that we're in a situation here where I'm not even sure that this is going to go down, that the liberals are going to allow him to be on the ballot. So I think we need to focus on electing somebody like, I'll surprise you, electing somebody like Nikki Haley, a stable second, or someone to put on the VP line that is very strong.
So you as a Trumper would put Nikki Haley as the VP.
Yeah, I'm a realistic Trumper. Now, we were in a tough situation, and I don't think DeSantis is ready yet. But I would go right now. I mean, I'd be interested to hear what other people think. But me as a primary voter, I probably will be voting for Haley just because I want to see her strong enough to a sub in a position, because I don't think Vivek is going to do it now. So there's my 2 cents.
Well, I agree with you on that, Steve. That is a very sober message from you. That's a great point. Even if you're a diehard Trumper, if you have concerns about him going all the way, then who's your number 2? I mean, Vivek's a clown. The guy is a complete clown show. He's not serious. He doesn't even want to be president. He wants to probably do his own podcast where he's going to make a lot of money when this is all said and done. That's it. Maybe he runs for U.S. Senate somewhere or something like that. That's interesting. I mean, listen, I think of the options, Ron's a better option than Nikki, but if you're saying Trump's never going to pick Ron, so Nikki might be his best number 2 bet, okay. Although I'm seeing the name Tucker Carlson get floated out there a lot. I don't think there's any way that's going to happen. I think that's a figment of right-wing social media's imagination. But I do keep seeing that popping up. And I'm like, guys, not going to happen. It's not going to happen. 913-408-7957 on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. By the way, former Donald Trump economic advisor Steve Moore will be here at 7:30. Don't miss that on KCMO. Coming up, a prominent athlete's career may have come to an end, and on the way out, she questions whether or not God exists because of how her career may have ended. There are narcissists, and then there is Megan Rapinoe. Good morning. Happy Monday. It is good to have you here on KCMO. Thought you guys
about me. Let's talk about me. Right?
She is unbelievable, is she not? Of course, the Team USA soccer player was playing in her finals match over the weekend. She's set to retire. Good riddance. And what an ending to her career. Her career came to an end, most likely, 6 minutes in to this game she was playing. She's on this, Mark, you know the soccer, or I guess you both know soccer, but she's on this team, OL Reign.
Right.
I guess it's a women's...
NWSL, like the current.
Oh, okay. It's like the current.
It's their championship playoffs.
Gotcha. Okay.
NWSL.
Okay, so it's the current, same league as the KC Current. The championship match was being played. So Megan Rapinoe is on one of the teams, and this was going to be her final game. And it turns out that she blew out her Achilles in a non-contact injury just a few minutes in. And naturally, Megan Rapinoe, being the narcissist that she is, came to the conclusion after the game and said as much in the media, if there was a God, this is proof there isn't. Take a listen to this from Megan Rapinoe.
This is a long one, although I'm going to get the Aaron Rodgers treatment, whatever that is. So I'm going to be calling him or whoever did his surgery because we need to speed this up. But yeah, I thought about it a little bit. I mean, I'm not a religious person or anything. And if there was a God, this is proof that there isn't. This is up. So yeah, it's just up because 6 minutes in, eat my Achilles. I mean, what the
Megan Rapinoe. That's it right there. Yep. Take a bow, Megan. Gosh, don't let the door hit you on the way out. I'll tell you. Megan Rapinoe, I know she dropped quite a few F-bombs there, so it might have been hard to understand, but she said, I'm not a religious person or anything like that. And if there was a God, this is proof there isn't. This is effed up. It's just effed up. 6 minutes in, and I eat my Achilles. Wow. So simply because Rapinoe's version of God doesn't exist, which I thought her God was probably Tony Fauci or something like that. But either way, the super progressive women's soccer player decided that God can't possibly exist Because if there was a God, he would never let Megan Rapinoe's career end with a non-contact Achilles injury. He would never do such a thing, John.
God doesn't have an IR, Pete. Right? What a silly equation.
How ridiculous of a human being do you have to be to first off think that and then say it out loud? Like, it's bad enough to think it, right? It's bad enough to even have that cross your mind. And Mark, we got to get your dad on the line or something. He's a pastor, isn't he? Knock some sense into Megan Rapinoe. Think we can get that accomplished? Get Mark's dad on the line with Megan Rapinoe and explain to her that you blowing out your Achilles in your final game is not a sign that God doesn't exist. I don't know. Maybe we can try to set that up after the show or something like that.
Of course, the deity is only concerned with her injuries and not anybody in any other sport at any other time.
Nope, of course not. That's not how it works. So her version of God would never throw a wrench in her storybook ending. Oh, my goodness gracious. This girl is such a joke. Or is she a girl, or is she identifying as something else these days? Because I know that Megan Rapinoe is a big supporter, by the way, of men competing in women's sports now that her career is over. But, of course, if that man had taken her spot on any team, oh, my goodness, could you imagine the narcissism that would have come out of Megan Rapinoe then? But now that her career is ending, she can go full-blown woke, and she can go out there and she can talk about the fact that men should compete in women's sports because that's the right thing to do. So good riddance to Megan Rapinoe and her career. And by the way, maybe if she calls up Aaron Rodgers looking for his doctor who helped him with his Achilles, maybe Aaron Rodgers can try to de-wokeify Megan Rapinoe. I would trust him to do it. He's not putting up with any of that. That would be outstanding. But something tells me that's probably not going to happen. Anyway, welcome in. Happy Monday morning. Thanks for being here on KCMO Talk Radio. I did see this on a similar note. Speaking of things Megan Rapinoe supports, over the weekend in Maine, a male runner finished 6th among the women in the New England cross-country finals. So he came in 6th place. Soren Stark Chessa is his name. He finished with a time of 18 minutes and 7 seconds, and that was good for 6th place in the New England cross-country finals. Now, that same time, had he run in the boys' race, would have finished him 215th out of 257 boys in the race. But because the individual decides he's going to run as a girl, he comes in 6th place. How about that? As someone that, and Mark used to run cross country back in the day, I believe. Mark, do you remember your best 5K time from your heyday running cross country?
My best one was actually in a 10K.
Oh.
Like, I had my best time in the middle of a race. It was 16:47, I think.
Ooh, that's moving.
I was flying in that race. It was a nice flat course.
Okay, you were moving along very well. Nice job. That's outstanding. All right, you got me beat by about 30 seconds there, 25 to 30 seconds, give or take.
That was my freshman year of college. I peaked then.
Oh, yeah. Hey, man, you went to college. Good for you. Well, you ran in college. Good for you. So that's well done. Well, think about this. You've now got a situation where this individual would have finished in the bottom 40 out of 260 runners on the boys' side. And instead, it's like, you know what? You want to go the other way? Come on in. You're going to finish in 6th place, and we're all here to apparently celebrate it. I saw this on Riley Gaines' social media. Riley, of course, is the now famous swimmer who called out Leah Thomas for beating her in the swim races a couple of years ago now, and she's become an important figure on this issue. She's been in the studio, by the way. She was here last fall when Derek Schmidt was running for governor against Laura Kelly in Kansas. And while it didn't work, and while in hindsight, this issue appears to be a political loser for Republicans, I mean, that's just kind of the takeaways from the last couple of elections, it doesn't mean it's something that we should just forget about or we should just start celebrating. I mean, you know, we should point it out, we should call it out, and we should still not get to the point where we normalize women losing spots on teams or losing races or losing matches and losing games to biological men. It might be a political loser, but it's not something that we should just sit here and twiddle our thumbs about and say, wow, this is great, John. I'm not going to do that.
So you didn't ask about my cross-country time because I had both you beat.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes. Now, mine was 72 in a 65-mile-an-hour zone. So fastest I've done.
Well, I figured you might have had us both beat. Well, that's well done there, John.
Yeah.
Well done on a Monday morning on KCMO. Oh, gosh. 913-408-7957. Welcome in on a Monday morning. So I read this over the weekend. It was from NPR. I know. But hey, I'm reading it all over the place, man. I don't care where it is. I'm reading it across the board because I want to figure out what it means. And it being life, it being the world. So I'm going to read nonsense on NPR. But this actually wasn't a bad piece on NPR. The headline was, "The school board made news for banning books. Voters flipped it to majority Democrat." And it was a story about school board elections in Pennsylvania last week and how there was a lot of success for Democrats in school board races. And by the way, we saw that same trend happen here in Johnson County. Johnson County Democrats endorsed a lot of people in the school board races, and I think they basically won all of them. Now, 2 years ago, the last time we had these off-year elections and school board races, what happened? You had people who were, pushing back on the COVID shutdowns in schools and the masking of kids who had more success. And we covered those races at the time. In Blue Valley, in Olathe, less so in Shawnee Mission, but we saw a lot of the school board races where a lot of the folks who were like, hey, it's insane to mask elementary school kids. It's insane to think that kids are better off being home than they are in the classroom. If you ran on that platform, you succeeded. Not guaranteed, but you had success. 2 years later, what happened? Well, anybody who ran on the right side of the culture war in many suburban districts around the country ended up losing. What does that tell you? You're not framing the culture war issue well enough and properly. That's what it tells me. I mean, the whole banning a book from a library thing, the amount of time that was spent on that. Yeah, do I think it's appropriate to have softcore porn in libraries? No, I don't. But if you give your kid a smartphone and you're complaining about softcore porn in a book, in a library, when kids don't even know how to read the Dewey Decimal System anymore, you're kind of misplacing your priorities. Because when you pull out that phone, I promise you that kid, if you don't have the right restrictions on there, can find whatever they want that is going to be far more controversial than what they find in row 27 at the school library, which, by the way, they don't go to anyway. I promise you. So you had a winning argument, right? Masking kids, dumb. Kids at home on laptops instead of in a classroom, dumb. You had a winning issue on a cultural topic, and you screwed the pooch. You went too far with it. And it turns out that if you're running on some of these issues, you got to figure out how to frame it better. You know what I'd be doing if I was going to be advising people that want to run for school board? Make it about the cost. Make it about how much money we spend per pupil in these schools. And in both Kansas and Missouri, depending on the school district, it's something like $15,000 to $17,000 per kid. It's oftentimes the largest part of our property taxes is going to schools. It's not going to a city. It's not going to a county. Oftentimes, if you actually look at the breakdown of your property taxes, which if you live in Kansas, you get an estimated property tax bill every year, and you can see the breakdown, how much goes to your city, how much goes to your county, how much goes to the state, which is pretty small, as I recall, and the school board's the biggest one. I would make it about that. I'm not saying a lot of these cultural issues aren't important, right? I mean, I don't want to see my daughter walking into a bathroom, in high school one day and bumping into a guy. I don't want that. But there's very little to suggest that in suburban districts, that message has worked the last couple of years. And it's not that the issue is not important. It's just not the most important issue. Because while I would sit here and tell you it's wrong, most people probably don't know somebody or have not personally experienced that. So they might be outraged by the idea of it, but they don't feel it every day. You know what we feel every day? Taxes. You know what we experience every day? Paying bills. Cutting that mortgage check every month. And then many of us who pay, of course, the estimated property taxes in our mortgage, that's what you feel. Every single person feels that. And we have a system, by the way, where kids are getting educated, or I should say learning less, it seems like. Underachievement is happening, and it's been happening for the last 3 years, and it's not a money issue. We're spending 15 to 17 grand per kid on average across the region. That's where, if you want to talk about the outrage, if you want to talk about accountability, that makes far more sense than diving in head first on some of the cultural issues. And by the way, that happened in many cases. We had the Blue Valley folks in here who all unfortunately ended up losing, and they talked about student achievement. They had the right approach, but they've already been branded by the media and by their opponents as radical culture warriors, and that in part likely ended up costing them. Well, a week from today, Joe Biden turned 81 years old. Can you believe that? He's going to be 81 1 week from today. Oh, my goodness gracious.
What are we talking about?
I know. Next thing, we'll have to have him count to 81. See how that goes, John.
81? Seems more like 91. No,
101?
I was thinking, wow, that's an old 81, seemingly.
No, it is.
Right?
It is. Age is a number. There's no doubt about it. Everyone ages differently. It is an old 81. No doubt about it. And here's the problem for him. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Joe Biden won the youth vote by double digits back in 2020, while seniors swung for Donald Trump. But recent polls are telling an interesting story here. It shows that seniors are the only age group that is favoring Joe Biden in a rematch. Why? Bidenomics has exacted a massive wealth transfer from young people to seniors. And they go on to note some of the recent polling that from the New York Times, Siena College, CNN poll, Emerson poll, you got 3 polls now that all are showing Joe Biden and Donald Trump running neck and neck. So one of the polls here, it says here from the Wall Street Journal, youngsters have a more negative outlook than seniors and are also more likely to identify the cost of living as the most important issue, closely followed by the economy and jobs. Few young people are likely to say so about abortion, climate change, gun control, and threats to democracy. Now, of course, you wouldn't know that from the press coverage, but that's what the polls are showing. Even many young college grads don't share the radical left's views. Most are more preoccupied with paying their bills than with ensuring that trans-identifying men can use women's bathrooms. The Inflation Reduction Act's rooftop solar and electric vehicle subsidies won't help them buy groceries or fill up their gas tanks. Now, the Wall Street Journal writes that the administration's gusher of pandemic payments that fueled inflation has finally ebbed. Young people are struggling financially. Credit card delinquencies amongst those under 40 are at the highest point since 2010. Young people are about twice as likely to be overdue on their bills than seniors. It says here they've suffered more from inflation and benefited less from the run-up in asset prices during the Biden presidency. Millennials have gained $2.3 trillion in wealth, not adjusted for inflation, since Joe Biden entered office, while baby boomers' net worth has grown by $8.9 trillion. For once, as the Wall Street Journal notes, it's good to be old. Seniors are more likely to own assets. Home ownership rate for Americans 65 and up is double that of those under 35. They've locked in low mortgage rates. Some saved hundreds of dollars a month by refinancing when rates were low, giving them more financial liquidity to deal with the rising inflation. It goes on to say most people that are younger don't own homes. They've been slammed by skyrocketing rents as well. Those are up more than 20% during the presidency of Joe Biden. Also noting Social Security checks are adjusted for inflation, workers' paychecks have not kept up with the cost of living. So we're living through this right now where young people have been impacted in a much more significant way from the economic woes of the last 3 years than older people. And by the way, go out on the street and live it. Talk to families. Like, trust me, I hear from and talk to a lot of older, when I say older, I mean people who just, don't have kids around anymore. Kids are out of the house, empty nesters, whatever phrase you want to use, who obviously understand the economic times we're living in and don't like it. But they're not really getting impacted by it for the aforementioned reasons. They own a home. It's either paid off. They refinance at a low rate. Kids are out of the house, not worrying about the grocery bills as much. They're not trying to feed a family. They know it's bad and they're upset about it, but they're not living it. It's another thing to live it, right? It's another thing to see it. As you go to the grocery store, you got a couple of kids, you walk at a Hy-Vee and you're like, I got all this. This is all I got for $75? This might last me until Thursday. And I'm not picking on Hy-Vee. I'm just using it as an example. Fill in Price Chopper, fill in whatever you want. That's the point. So we now have potentially this swing in younger voters where they're not caring about the things that oftentimes Joe Biden and many Democrats want them to care about. Boy, if we don't get this climate fix, we're all going to die by 2030. Well, suddenly a lot of these people are saying, hey, if we don't have some break in inflation, I ain't making it to 2030. Right? And people are starting to think about what's next in their lives. Is it settling down? Is it getting married? Is it having kids? Is it owning a home? Is it doing all those things that naturally we want to do? Like, I know there are political figures that don't want us to have those things. They want us to all be miserable and single and have no family and just have the government taking care of us until the end of time. There are people that want that for you, by the way. Don't kid yourself. There are people that want that. Because if all you have is them, then that means you're more reliant on them and you're more likely to vote for them. But as people naturally want those things, they're looking at the last 3 years and saying, boy, this is not good. This ain't working for me. You had this from the Financial Times yesterday. Only 14% of U.S. voters say that Joe Biden has made them better off. I mean, that's a horrible number. And while boomers have typically been, or I should say the older generation has typically been more likely to vote Republican, you might see a changing of the guard here. Where older people are more likely to say, I've done okay, right? You can actually save some money right now. You can make money. You can make 4 or 5% on a money market fund. Your money's at zero risk if you do that. That's a pretty good spot to be in if you don't have to take the risks of the stock market right now. That's all well and good. So there's a lot of reasons to suggest that people are finally waking up on this stuff, younger people in particular. And they're maybe not as driven by the social issues. Now, they will be. We saw how the abortion vote went again last week. The American people are speaking on that. I can disagree with it. But you know what? The voters are speaking on the issue. The abortion thing, unfortunately, for a multitude of reasons, is not winning out on the pro-life side. But if you go into 2024 and you just focus on the economy and you focus on how the American dream has been lost over the last 3 years due to the economic policies of the people in charge, well, whether it's Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis or anybody else, you got a winning issue here. Don't screw it up. This is pretty good, too. You tell me. I know anecdotally a lot of you are going to disagree, but I was just sharing this article before the top of the hour. Headline from the Wall Street Journal, how Bidenomics may cost Joe Biden the youth vote. And in a recent American Psychological Association survey, seniors reported less stress than they did back in 2019, whereas young people reported more, primarily because of concerns about money, the economy, and housing. It's not climate change. It's not cultural issues. It's not the age of the president. It's the consequences of the old guys economic policies. That's it. That's what's going on. So we'll see what it means all in all, but it is fascinating to see that, as the Journal notes, after Joe Biden won the youth vote by double digits in 2020, while seniors swung the way for Donald Trump, recent polls are showing a flip-flop. Seniors now the only age group showing that Joe Biden wins in a rematch, whereas younger people are more likely to trend away from the current president. That is very telling. And I'll tell you what, as a millennial myself, who obviously interacts with mostly millennials, they're feeling it. You know, raising kids, housing, everything else, grocery bills, they're feeling it. And while a lot of the people that I interact with on a daily basis in my millennial circles happen to agree with me, even those that don't are starting to question what exactly is going on and whether or not the people in charge are looking out for them. This morning, I asked Steve Moore. He was a Trump economic advisor when Trump was in the White House. He's still advising Donald Trump. I asked him about this very poll that was done and specifically about the youth vote. And here's what Steve Moore had to say.
That's a great question, because right now, other than suburban women and black voters, the other problem that Trump has is with young voters, the millennials and the Generation Xers. And by the way, Trump is doing great with Hispanics, great with Asians, great with blue collar workers. He's just having a problem with the very rich, which tend to vote for Democrats, and then this group of young voters. And I don't know, because the young voters tend to be more socially liberal. But you know what? One thing about young voters, they get older, right? Yes. And when they get older, they become more conservative. That's just the look at the baby boomers. These were the people who were protesting in the streets about the Vietnam War in the 60s, and now they're the most conservative voters there are. So we'll see about that, but you're right. That is a key demographic group. And when you look, I'll give you just one statistic. Let's say you're 35 to 40, you want to buy your first house, achieve the American dream of home ownership. Your mortgage payments, because of the higher interest rates, which were 3% on a mortgage when Trump left office and now are 7.5%, your mortgage payments, instead of being about $1,500 a month, will now be about $3,000 a month. That's double. So when you talk about, young people wanting to buy a house, they can't afford it.
There you go. That was Steve Moore this morning on KCMO, and he's right about that. You go out there, you look at mortgage rates right now, and your buying power is not nearly what it was just 3.5, 4 years ago or so. It's not even close when you had rates down around 3%. Heck, some below 3%. Now you're pushing 7, 8, 9%. So it's a bad deal out there. Carol's in Overland Park. Hello, Carol. Good morning. You're on KCMO 95.7. What's happening?
Good morning. Well, I want to say first, I'm a conservative and I'll vote for whoever's on the Republican ticket. But I was just thinking, just laying out to myself what's going on. And it's truly amazing because we have both sides with their candidates wanting the other in jail. And it's serious because Trump has 91 indictments and Joe Biden has serious corruption investigation in the House. Mm-hmm. And Trump is the best fundraiser and get out the vote person for the Democrats. And on the Republican side, a lot of Trump voters say if he's not on the ticket, they won't vote. And a lot of Republicans say if he is on the ticket, they won't vote. And then you have the left and the swamp who were, while Trump was president, they were still very powerful. And they did a lot of bad things. And now they're more powerful. And I just don't know how they would ever let Trump go all the way to be president again. So I think a lot of things are going to happen. They always do. But it's just such a precarious situation we're in.
It's a mess. It is an absolute mess, Carol. Thank you. Here's the thing, too. When most people go to polls voting against somebody, I know that's oftentimes how it works, and that's said to say how you oftentimes can win elections, but it really is pathetic, isn't it? Like, we're probably heading towards a rematch in what will be a very unpopular 2024 election. That's a fact. And that's why, by the way, I haven't even talked about this yet, but I had this on my rundown this morning. RFK Jr., who's running as an independent, is making waves in some of these national polls, including those under 45 years old. He's leading Biden and Trump in those under 45 years old and with independent voters. It's crazy. I don't know if he can get himself on ballots. I don't know how any of this is going to work with RFK Jr. I have no idea. But it's not really as much about RFK. Yes, he's got some name ID. It's about that people are not digging this idea, generally speaking, that we're heading down the track of having two guys who we just saw do it 4 years ago, who are a combined 160 years old, who across the aisle, depending on which side you're on, you hate the other guy. Like, none of it's good. None of it's healthy for the country. None of it's beneficial, even though I think, obviously, one of these two guys would do a far better job when it comes to solving some of these economic issues we've been talking about this morning. But, man, oh, man, it is just bad all around. And it's not something most people are, by the way, looking forward to as well. Oh, so thank you for that, Carol. Good point. The text line, 913-408-7957, as we roll through a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Pete, older people should still be worried about their nest egg money. Well, yes, but once again, and we've talked about this with Mark Falter, who does the weekend show here on KCMO, 9 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday mornings, as he notes, yes, inflation and these high rates are not good, but they are much better for seniors who have money and actually have a nest egg than they are for those trying to build a nest egg. You can put your nest egg in a money market right now and make 5% at zero risk. That's pretty good. Now, I understand that might not be keeping up with inflation still, depending on where the inflation rate settles, but Mark Falter has said this before, and he's like, I'm not a fan of the economic policies going on right now. But the reality is when he talks to retirees or people close to retirement and they start bemoaning the economy, he kind of points out, yeah, it's not good, but you're in a better spot than those younger folks just starting to make their way in the world with young families. You're in a much better place. If you own your home, if you're on Social Security, if you've got a nest egg that you can make money off of, you're in a much better place. And he said as much on this show, and he's right to point that out.